we're so quick to judge someone on a short season of their life, not taking in retrospect their entire life.
Global Properties. And here I am 2-3 years later, we're in 40 countries with 15,000 brokers, and I own the state of Oregon. So that's the story. And, as an adult, I was able to do, life was a candy store. I was making $500,000 a year as a kid. I could tell you how to trade bonds and stocks, but I don't know how to live without these ingredients in my life.
Right next door to a billionaire, but I spent my winters in line at cross lines for free gifts and food stamps and welfare, and I think that's what shaped me into the leader that I am today. Yeah, that's powerful. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another podcast on Behind the Build, featured on my Suits and Shoes channel. Today's the first virtual podcast I'm doing because it's a very special guest, and I couldn't wait any longer to feature your story, Terry. I want to introduce Terry. And Terry, just following you on social media and watching your videos of, you're like Ryan Serhant, but internationally. I feel like you're coming to Dubai and Oregon and covering all these areas. So I just want to kick it off by starting with the question I always ask: what is it like being Terry?
Okay, well, it's fun being Terry. The most important thing is I get to be a great dad and a good husband. That's the number one goal. And then, being in an industry that allows me to travel globally and take my family with me, and to work with a clientele and the type of product that I do that's interesting and inspirational, it makes it really enjoyable.
Yeah, that's amazing. I want to start with a background into you. And so let's just start with the backstory. You've really redefined the space. I remember one of the first times I ran into you at the ski resort in Portland, Oregon, when we were on the Big Ascender. And I don't know like how to put into words, but just your ability to network and connect with everyone is extraordinary. So Tell me about your backstory and starting point. How did you get into real estate?
So I never thought about getting into real estate. It's interesting. People call me and say, I want to get into real estate. And why do you want to do that? And they said, well, I love homes and I love to talk to people. Quite honestly, being in real estate never registered in my mind, but I have an interesting background. Like you, very self-made. I actually grew up in a very humble area of Portland, 6 kids in a 1,500 square foot house, and went to had some maybe learning differences, and for whatever reason, academically was not a real achiever and dropped out of school when I was 15. I came home and said to my dad, I'm going to quit school. And he said, that's fine. You just need to move out. So I think he just thought I was going to run away for the weekend. And actually what ended up happening was I hitchhiked down to Eugene, Oregon, where one of my sisters was going to University of Oregon. And I went to church and met a guy that owned a landscaping company. And he said, look, I'll give you a job for 2 days. And I came in and worked hard. My first time ever doing incredibly hard labor. And he said, I'll give you a job. And I said, I need a place to live. And he said, all right, for $50 a month, you can live in my garage. And we'll get you a water bed. That'll be your source of heat. And then your furniture is going to be a bunch of lawnmowers and gas tanks. But what was great about that guy, his name was Kevin Teller, and he's passed away, was that the company was called Teller Landscaping Company, TLC. And we would get up at 5 a.m. We'd go have breakfast. He's the one that taught me to look in the waitress's eye and treat her with respect. And then on the job site, we did everything with perfection. And we would back up the trucks at night and wash down the job site and make it perfect before we left. Yeah. Then by the time I was 16, I was a foreman and I was not going to school. Yeah. And I moved back to Portland and I got a job for Meyer & Frank's, which is now owned by Macy's. And I worked in this big retail store that was 13 stories high. Wow. And I went out and bought a suit, and I'm a little guy, 5'7". I bought a suit at a boy store and pinstripe suit, and I ironed my own shirts. And on Christmas Eve night, I went out and bought 2 McDonald's gift certificates for Mr. Meyer and Mr. Frank. and their office was on the 13th floor. Paul, this is when you had to tear out the Big Mac. That nothing was digital. It was just, a little book full of gift certificates. Yeah. Well, they came down that evening, and I was about 18 years old, and they thanked me for these McDonald's gift certificates. And I got a call from the head of personnel the next Monday, and she said, "I don't know what you did or said, but I've been told to put you through a executive assessment program that's for college recruits."
Wow.
So there I was at 19 years old with an executive in training on my way to becoming a clothing buyer. And then I went to work for a high-end fashion company here in Portland called Mario's. Then I had a moment where I was thinking, okay, I miss being a kid. And I always was concerned about my communication skills. Yeah. That maybe someone would know that in fact, when I became an executive, the first thing my sister said to me, who was a mentor, is just listen a lot. Don't try to act like you know what you're doing, because you're 18. You don't even have a high school diploma. They don't know that. And you're in an executive position. So, that was a good lesson when you're around people to listen before you speak. Yeah. Anyway, I went and bought a GED book and studied at a university and got into the University of Oregon and drove down to the University of Oregon. At that time, I was about 21 years old. And I signed up for every communication course they had: small group, large group, interpersonal. And, these days with artificial intelligence, the HI, the human intelligence, is really important. Yeah. And then I got a call I got recruited to another buying position in Hawaii. So there I was, a young kid flying to New York and LA, buying high-end Italian clothing. And then a buddy of mine called me that I had met that was also a clothing buyer, and he had gone to work for Shearson Lehman Hutton, Lehman Brothers. And he said, "Terry, you would love it here." So I flew back to New York and I interviewed, and the guy asked me, "Where did you go to college?" And I said, "I went to the University of Oregon." Now, I'd gone for 1 year, but my answer was, "I went to the University of Oregon." And he goes, "Well, when did you graduate?" And I said, "Well, I finished in 82. So I didn't lie. I was finished with my college career. Yeah. I just didn't graduate. Yeah. And, I was in training in New York, and among all of these guys that came from wealthy families. And I got a list of the highest net worth people I could get. I went to the bond trader and I said, "Can I take the spread out of the bonds and take a lower commission if I'm pitching bonds?" And I walked by this guy's office. His name was Bill Chambers. And I heard him say he had a $50,000 minimum for a trade, which today would be like $250,000 minimum. And I thought, why do I have to wait? I work for the same company, Shearson Lehman Brothers. Why do I have to wait to have a $50,000 minimum? So when I got on the phone and started cold calling, when all the other guys went home, I would pitch, which meant 500 dials, at least 100 people a day.
Wow.
And I would call them up and say, "Pavel, this is Terry Sprague calling from Lehman Brothers. I've got a municipal bond with a good interest rate. Thought you would like to know about it." And then I had it priced below his broker's price. He'd call me back and say, "Hey, I'll take 10,000. And I would say, "I have a $50,000 minimum. When's the next time you have at least 50 or 100 coming due? And I'll call you back then." And I just started building my pipeline of high net worth bond buyers. And I was rookie of the year at Lehman. Then I did that for 15 years, ended up, my last position was vice president up in Seattle, but the lifestyle took its toll. All the movies on Wall Street, I lived it. And, but I was getting exhausted. So I was about 39 years old. And one of the things was, growing up in the environment I did, we started drinking and even drugging early in our childhoods. Yeah. And, as an adult, I was able to do, life was a candy store. I was making $500,000 a year as a kid. And but I enjoyed going out and then doing the formal fancy drinking with everybody, but I would love to go to a bar and hang out with guys drinking beers and play pool at night till 1, 2 in the morning. And it just became exhausting being me. And as you get older, you just don't have the same turnaround time. Yeah. So I actually, one day my manager walked in the office and said, "Hey, how you doing?" And I said, "You know what? I'm always a happy guy, but I'm exhausted. I think I need to stop drinking." Yeah. So he said, "What do you want me to do?" And I said, "Well, let's get a phone book out." We called a place. I went in and I answered all the questions honestly. And they said, "You should be here." And so I went to the treatment center and I said, "Look, I could tell you how to trade bonds and stocks, but I don't know how to live without these ingredients in my life. I mean, everything I do, whether I'm eating, going out golfing, fishing, anything, usually there's a cocktail and I've got a buzz. Yeah. So if you could teach me how to do that, that would be great. And I will do exactly everything you tell me to do." Now, 25 years later, here I am. Wow. Now, after a year of being sober, being in that community, you see some people that don't succeed. And I had gone through a tough week where I saw 3 friends kill themselves that week. I'd gone over to pick up a friend and she had gassed herself and killed herself in her car. Horrible week. But that I think that was a blessing because it told me how important it was to maintain my, spiritual journey. Yeah. And so I actually called a counselor and said, I think I need some more help. I need some more I have not relapsed, but I need some more counseling. And I ended up going to Antigua, where Eric Clapton had opened up a treatment center in the Caribbean. And I spent a month there and they said, "Terry, you're so driven. Is there any way you can take some time off?" And it was like having your doctor write you a note. And so I went back to the office in Seattle and said, "I'm going to take some time off." And I had an estate sale. And at the time in Seattle, as part of my sobriety, I started doing artwork and sailing. And, I had my advanced ocean sailing licenses. And I moved to Antigua. And I ended up working with the government of Antigua, and I found a 10-acre estate, and I opened up a place called Heavenly Hill. If you go to TripAdvisor, you'll see reviews about some guy from Wall Street who opened an art gallery for the local artists in Antigua. So all the artists, all the local people would sell their art on the streets. The expats had these fancy art galleries. So we opened up this beautiful place that had live music at night, watch the sunset, look at art in the gallery, and it was very popular among the local people and the tourists. And I did that for 6 years and did cross-Atlantic sailing trips and, did photography and hung out of helicopters and did racing photography. And then, Pavel, I met my wife on the beach one day. And so there I was. It was really cool because for 3 years, I did not have I didn't have TV. So I turned off the news. And this was right after 9/11. And so all the politics and everything, I was just sailing, fishing, doing artwork, and listening to music. I met my wife. She was a school teacher from New York City. And I started flying back and forth. We met. She came to my restaurant in Antigua. Wow. And I started dating her. We got married. She moved to the Caribbean with me. We did one final cross-Atlantic trip to Portugal from St. Martin's. I came home into Portland, West Lynn area, and my mom was dying. And so I thought, I want to get home. Maybe it's my time to re-engage in the real world. And I bought a house. Yeah. And when I bought that house, I thought, what do these guys do? And where is the merchandising? Where's the science of reaching the actual client? And, merchandising, in other words, back then people used to just take a couple pictures and put it on the multiple listing service. Where's the videos? Where's the storytelling? And then where's the financial advisory side? How do I give an edge? So I wrote a unique business plan that would be an advisor in the luxury space, presented that to a regional company called Windermere. Took me 1 year to double the number one producer's production and became the number one producer there. Then when the market got difficult in 08, 09, brought the brand Sotheby's to Portland, made a choice to partner up with Christie's, the auction house out of London, brought that brand to Portland, continued to become a global broker. And then recently, Rick Hilton, Jeff Hyland, and a group of us partnered with Forbes Media and created Forbes Global Properties. And here I am 2-3 years later, we're in 40 countries with 15,000 brokers, and I own the state of Oregon. So that's the story.
That's so powerful. It's worth writing a book, or maybe let's jump into a documentary, Terry. That's amazing. I'm really inspired. It's always interesting to me that every individual that I interview on this podcast, how unique of a story they have that the world doesn't know about. And we're so quick to judge someone on a short season of their life, not taking in retrospect their entire life, everything they've gone through, everything they're going through, and everything they may go through one day. And so I really appreciate you sharing that. As you know, my story is very much relatable. I like to share that I grew up on the gold side of town, the east side, right next door to a billionaire, but I spent my winters in line at cross lines for free gifts and food stamps and welfare. And I think that's what shaped me into the leader that I am today, and why I'm just so passionate about giving a majority or bulk of my wealth away. Not only because I don't have children yet, but because I love giving back. And I see that in your life. I want to transition into what our listeners really want to know about today, with your background and your experience. And that's real estate. It's changing so fast. It seems like I read a stat recently that a majority of real estate agents in the last 2 years haven't really sold much. I know my realtor is doing his last deal for me, and he's closing his doors down. And it just seems like some people are really struggling, yet other people, like the Ryan Serhants of this world, are really excelling. So before we jump into the new trends, I know from my side, whenever I speak at events, what helps someone succeed in the downturn of economy is I don't believe in downturns. I don't believe in risk. I don't believe in failure. I've never seen the famous story that's going viral right now. I've never seen a bird fall and die whenever a branch breaks. So I truly believe, from a manufacturing standpoint, someone that does business with other businesses and business with consumers, if you pivot, if you move, if you get ruthless and think outside the box, you can succeed. But speaking about the real estate industry, what do you think is your secret sauce to succeeding, and what advice do you have for other individuals in the real estate business to succeed in times such as that we're living today?
Well, I see your Gators helmet in the background. All right. And, people know I work with a lot of professional athletes, and
Tim Tebow actually signed me that helmet. My favorite Bible verse, John 3:16.
Right on. Life is like sports, and life should be, like you mentioned, we live chapters.
Yeah.
And so whatever your chapter you're in, you want to play to win. Right. And, successful sporting teams, successful businesses have a plan.
Yeah.
Have a business plan. And adversity creates opportunity. And in fact, it makes it more interesting. I mean, playing in a sports game, watching a Super Bowl game that they win by 60 is boring. Watching the 1967 Tundra Green Bay Packer game at 15 below zero, fourth quarter, that is interesting. But you know what? Those players are torn up and beat up at the end of that game. Yeah. But there's nothing like the success of going through the most difficult times. And for me, I've seen the abyss in a couple, I've had some tough times in my life that brought me way down. And what I know is I didn't look at, for instance, my most difficult times as weakness, but as a moment to call on myself and my courage. So for instance, I didn't look at the fact that, I reacted differently to alcohol as a weakness. I looked at that as the most courageous thing I could do is save my life, because for me to be a benefit to others, I've got to save my life. So, part of it isn't it more enjoyable in life to have a story that people look back on and you had challenges and you overcame those challenges? So in real estate, when I first got into the business, they looked at my business plan and said, "You really think you could do this?" And it basically said, I'm only going to work with people that do $1 million or more houses, which at the time was, 06, 07. And, I'd be like $2 million now. And here's how I'm going to position myself within that particular category of clientele. And what happened? The market started crashing. But when I was a trader, when I traded stocks, I was what's called a contrarian trader. I always looked for the companies that weren't down in value because their fundamentals had changed. It was just the economy was in a cycle. So how do I position myself in front of the trend? And actually, I'm drawn to the difficult times. And I also know that in any industry, when things are difficult, what is your competition doing? They are pulling back. They are running into crisis. This is the time to start calling plays and start saying, how are we going to double down and strategically position ourselves to take over the market share of our competition right now? And one of the things, some of the artwork I've made in the past is old, well-known companies like Polaroid, Kodak, Blockbuster Video that did not see the changes within their industry, and they were disrupted. So one good question to ask yourself as a business person every day is, what would I do if I was my competition to disrupt and put me out of business?
Wow, that's deep.
Because think about it. People see the optics of all the things you're doing perfectly, but in those moments of quiet, maybe you're in the shower or you're just waking up in the morning and you have that moment when you go, I have flaws. Yeah. I have areas within my business model that are peas under the mattress, that are festering, that are possibly going to go wrong. And we delay taking care of those things. Well, what if our competition knew about all those things? What if our competition had a key to our bad neighborhood in our mind that was always knowing the flaws within the communication, the delivery, whatever it might be? So become your own disruptor. And then what happens is you start disrupting the rest of you start raising the bar on the delivery and the execution for your client, and your competition is always chasing you.
I like that. That's so deep, Terry. Do you speak at any business forums?
So, I sent you a video. I was recently, Ryan Serhant's a good friend, Josh Haltman. I'm in Portland, Oregon, so I've tried to remain kind of humble, and, I make a decent living selling real estate. But I have been doing, one of the things I don't ever, I've been rated number 1 or number 50 in the country or this and that. I call myself a market leader. And what the word, I think calling yourself a market leader as opposed to saying I'm number 1 is that to your client, what that means is that you have a personal responsibility to your industry to constantly be reevaluating the needs of your clientele, the needs of the people that work for you, your family, and then give back to your industry. So yes, I speak at other companies. So Keller Williams, I was up in Seattle last year speaking at their luxury event. I was just in Dubai speaking at an event, for 300-400 brokers. And I am doing more and more speaking events. Just recently partnered, did my first, co-authoring of a book.
Wow.
And this is a friend of mine, brought together the top, 20 producing brokers in the country, and we each wrote a chapter.
Link, I'll put it in the description so that we can, I can order it and other people can too.
Yeah, definitely.
It's interesting how you highlight that, Terry. I always say something similar to build off of what you mentioned is lean into it. So in some industries like manufacturing and not just manufacturing, I always say, you learn a lot from manufacturing because in manufacturing, we encompass everything. Like not many people know 27North has a real estate holding company, and it makes a lot of money. And we have these divisions. And what's beautiful about manufacturing is we encompass everything. So we're affected by all things. And I would say the most fatal mistake people make is trying to pull back. It always leads into a death spiral. And next thing you know, you're the BlackBerry. But if you lean into it, you stay ahead, you stay innovative. Like Don't stress and worry about what your competitors are doing. Stress and worry about the customer. Jeff Bezos always says, customer centric, like focus on the customer. If you can impress the customer, service the customer will come back to you. There's no competition. I want to have you expand more on real estate in general. 10 years ago, it seems like office space is where the money was at. Today, yes. I spent some time today with a great billionaire friend of mine, and he's written a couple of really good books. And I asked him the same question I'm about to ask you: what do you invest in? You know what he said? He's like, Pavel, I'm sitting on $110 million worth of cash, waiting for a downturn and a shift in real estate, and I want to buy more real estate and land. And I'm like, well, what is that shift? And he's like, well, I don't know yet, but I know it's coming. So you, as a real estate expert, what is that shift? If someone has
I think the shift
or $1 million, what are we putting our money into?
Yeah, I think the shift is here. And like anything, real estate is all location, and the fundamentals of the property that you're buying. And obviously there's properties that you can make improvements on in order to add value. But, the location of where you're buying and the future of the economies within those areas. I think there's been one time in 100 years that if you bought a real estate asset, held onto it for 5 years or more, that you didn't make money. So, it's a part of your portfolio. And, with the new with the new bill that was just passed, there are some really great incentives to buy real estate right now. And so, like I own, not a huge amount, but I've definitely always owned some Bitcoin and some, blockchain. And, I dollar cost average into it. And so this is a good time to be looking at dollar cost averaging. The difference between real estate and a stock is a stock, what the bid and the ask is on any given day. Okay. That's what it trades for. Now, why not be actively looking for the best stocks? What if you could identify the best stocks in the industry with the best fundamentals and long-term growth, and you actually had a chance to go and write a different offer than what it's trading on in the market? Okay. That's called inefficiency. All right. When I first started in the brokerage industry, there used to be up to a 1-point spread on a stock. In other words, the difference between the bid and the ask on a $10 stock sometimes was up to $1 spread. Now it's, 1/32 or 1/16 or, very narrow spreads on the bid and the ask. Well, real estate still is an inefficient trading marketplace, because unlike stocks, you need boots on the ground. You need to be able to go see it. There are reasons why you can't just look at it on a balance sheet. Yeah. But the beauty of real estate is, while everybody is uncomfortable, which they are right now, this is the time to go identify the best real estate assets and go write that bid price. How do you know that seller is not going to come off 10, 20% on their asking price? Because if sellers are selling right now, there was an article that came out a couple of days ago that delisting, in other words, taking your house off the market, is up 50% nationally. So inventory is not really growing. Sellers are saying, I'm just not going to sell right now because I think my house is worth more. And I recognize I'm in a bad economy. And at some point in time, interest rates and the economy is going to go. So I'm going to take my house off the market. Yeah. The sellers that you see that are selling right now, they are selling because they have to. There is an opportunity cost component, whether they're moving or they own that asset, it's no longer active. The difference between most real estate in the luxury real estate space, where it's an unoccupied house or something, is that unlike a stock that may be paying a dividend, the real estate is charging you a dividend unless you're using it. Yeah. So if you've got a piece of commercial property that's empty, you've got a luxury real estate that is empty, and that seller has it on the market right now, chances are, mostly if you go to that seller, and I present most of my offers in person, and you say, look, I understand this isn't the number that you expected to get. With that said, what are you going to go do with these dollars right now? And if I was giving you $5 million for this property right now, do you know where are you going to take that $5 million and invest it And is that rate of return going to be greater than you continuing to be a $5 million investor in this property? In other words, you're making a choice to buy your own property today. Yeah. If you don't take this 5 million, then you think there's more upside. Then you should continue to own that. But you'd be surprised how many deals that I've put together in the last 12 months and remain active, where there was a $10 million list price and we bought it for $6 million. There was a $7 million list price and we bought it for $5 million. There was a $10 million and we bought it for $6 million. So, you know, these moments create opportunity. And then on the sell side, you know, I'm still selling houses, but I'm also positioning my clients to understand the market they're in. And you know, I drove back really quick to get to this call because I was out showing a property that we have made the bid price so beautiful that it will sell. We just listed it on Thursday. The consumers coming to the house understand that it will sell over the next week, even though the market days on market average is, you know, 60 to 90 days.
That's powerful. So if you were to have, you said 5 million. So if you were to have 5 million to allocate at your discretion, what style of real estate would you invest that 5 million into?
Well, you know, real estate's an interesting thing because, you know, for me, I like investing in properties that I can also use. Okay. Yeah. And I enjoy traveling. So, you know, like I bought a place in Hawaii. And why? Because, you know, maybe someday the world goes crazy and Terry's, you know, got sand between his toes and I'm going shore fishing and I'm happy. Now, what I do with that property, for instance, is it's an investment, it's rental income, but I'm also in a program called Third Home that is a group of I think they got about 18,000 other property owners right now throughout the world that own vacation homes. Yes. And we put all those properties into that portfolio and we essentially assign a certain valuation of what my place is worth for a week. Yeah. And I can go stay at your place in Nantucket. So like last week I had a beautiful house in Nantucket, a beautiful house in Martha's Vineyard. And I was using the equity in my property in Hawaii with no taxable transaction. And I'm leveraging my asset that I own, and I'm staying other places in the world. So, you know, I'm in a point in my life where I've got an 18-year-old and a 16-year-old and a wife. We're traveling, we're vacationing, you know, and at the same time, the portfolio is in private residences. Yeah. And I'm paying for colleges and things like that. Yeah. If I were to, you know, I think identifying areas where, you know, the commercial real estate is under the water and trying to look for municipalities that are creating new ways to use those properties. And unfortunately, the owner of that commercial property has, you know, gone through a downturn in that particular local economy, but being creative and seeing if you can come up with different usages and buying commercial right now, I think would be wise. You know, reworking that the commercial spaces are going to change and shift. And then I think buying, you know, in my case, I have an NBA basketball player that's flying in tomorrow. I've got you know, I'm picking him up at the morning at the airport, and you know, we're going to go look at multiple properties. And initially, he's going to rent something. There is very few rental properties that are, and he's got a budget of $20,000 to $25,000 a month. Mm-hmm. But there's very few properties, ironically, in that space in Portland that I can go rent. So, you know, luxury properties that you can rent and hold on to, I think, are golden.
Yeah, that's powerful. I think it's a hidden gem. A lot of people look at it as a liability. And what I've learned, you know, building out this podcast and speaking to the ultra successful is they have a very diversified portfolio. Yes. I read a study that said 63% of high net worth individuals' portfolio is in real estate, and it's diversified between commercial, residential, land, and so forth. What is a common misconception working with wealthy and successful people that you've come across?
Maybe that you just can't be yourself. that wealthy people are uniquely different or something in personality. You mentioned that I'm good at meeting people. I'm actually, ironically, I enjoy one-on-one discussions. I can speak in front of an audience of 500 people, but when it comes to actually being at, I do a lot of charitable events, very philanthropic. I'm not like when I'm at a big event, I'm not actually a networker. I'll find somebody that I like and talk to them the whole night, just stick in one corner. I tend to gravitate towards people that are self-made, bottom line is I think anybody in any area of life right now wants access. Okay. So I don't care what you make in financially, we all have shared values. Good people have shared values. Just happens to be some people have money. But we all want access. And I think that what I try to provide is access to, people want the front row seat. They'd like to know the best restaurant. They'd like to, in real estate, I need efficiency. I need to be able to identify what meets my needs. So, listening to your clients and understanding their lifestyle needs, that the difference between buying a personal residence, and I work with clients that have, 4 or 5 residences throughout the world that I've assisted them with. And each one of those have a particular lifestyle need. And understanding that, listening to that, becoming an expert in the location that they're interested in. And then, I have the benefit of my wisdom and financial background that I also have colleagues within other areas of whether it be lawyers, private offices, lenders and private bankers with different kinds of interest rates. Becoming a peer, seeing yourself as a peer to your clientele, and just be yourself. Wealthy people don't need you to, they're looking for authenticity and that you're an expert, that you're an advisor. So become an advisor, become an expert in your industry.
Yeah, that's powerful. I know from my limited experience, so this is still all fairly new to me. I don't feel like we started having something of a success story until about 5 years ago. And so my experience is short lived. However, I've noticed that like the more authentic and down to earth you are, like the stronger the relationship goes. And something else I noticed in communications is everything's on text. Like early on, I was big on phone calls and I wanted to get on the phone and talk to people, and they kept pushing me towards text to the point now I run my life on text. Like I just bought a home, a very expensive home, and it was all over text. And I'm like, wow, I wonder if I should post this or if people are going to misunderstand me. The realtor tried to get me on the phone. I'm like, for what? Like, if you want to talk about like faith or family or shared values, I'm all for it. But we've just, done, the deal's done. I'll see you at closing. Like, there's nothing left to talk about. What styles of communications are you seeing most popular nowadays?
So I am still one of those guys that I'm definitely, when people, I ask my assistant to check if you sent me any emails because I get so behind on my emails. So text messages for the people who have my phone number is the most efficient way to communicate. I think voice texting is good because it's really important to hear the cadence of your client. I think you can be going through a transaction and not know that there was some pea under the mattress somewhere within that transaction that you missed something. That instead of them remembering the incredible job you're doing, they are focused on something that you didn't do right, or you dropped a ball that you're not even aware of. So I think with the text messages, I think it's important to pick up the call and I'm not calling you for any reason other than, I just want to take quick temperature of your space. And so that you the text messages are great, but you can never tell how they're being received and the personal feelings that the person has, but they're definitely efficient. And then, I WhatsApp now with international people, but I like talking to people. I pick up the phone.
I respect that. I know the first time I had the boldness to ask one of my customers, like, hey, why did you buy with us and our product instead of someone else's? Because it it was like 1.2 million for an RV is a lot of money. I know for a luxury home, that's probably the cost of the car that's parked in the garage, but for an RV, that's a fairly, priced RV. And I'm like, I was really curious, like you bought it sight unseen. And then I asked him, and what he told me? He's like, Pavel, I didn't buy your product, I bought you. I'm like,
Yes.
wow, that is so powerful. I know you shared, a couple of instances that were very similar, but talk to me a little bit about Forbes Global, what you do there, and how that sets you apart, and what role does your brand play within all of this?
Well, it's interesting, often I'm in a CEO group and, I talk about the value of Forbes, and then a lot of guys remind me, Terry, it's what you've created also. People, they gravitate towards you. And, there is always a sector of people, there'll always be a group of people out there that are drawn to empowering other people, want to do business with somebody they want to see successful. And so if somehow your communication style and your marketing is coming across authentic, approachable, and sometimes it's better to be number two, and people like to see somebody hungry and they love hero stories. So that's part of staying humble and remembering that very successful people they were there at one point in time. So if they see a little part of them in you, and there's a chance to buy a very customized vehicle through Pavel, as opposed to some company out of Germany that has been, it has no personal connection. Hey, I would rather go with Pavel. With Forbes, the science of reaching the consumer has been what I've been trying to figure out since I went into real estate. In other words, who is the avatar for a particular property? So every piece of real estate, there's commoditized properties, but even the most commoditized properties have a story. When you live in a property, you have life experiences in that property. And, in my case, I have anywhere from waterfront properties to ranches to basic homes. So being able to tell the story, and then how do you get the story scientifically to the consumer that story is important to? This is a piece of artwork that came from a Christie's artist that I met. And so during the time at Christie's, I really loved the storytelling behind art, the provenance. There's a story about Steve Wynn when he had a piece of art he was selling, and the guy lost his balance. I guess he has a little balance issue, and he put his elbow into the piece of art, and that actually increased the value of that painting because he had a Steve Wynn dimple in the artwork. And so people love storytelling. Now, when the reason I went to Sotheby's, it was international. It was the auction house. We interacted with art buyers. The reason I went to Christie's, first time I flew down to Beverly Hills, we were doing the Elizabeth Taylor, selling all of her artwork and her jewelry. And then what we looked at was, okay, where's the demographics of our buyers right now? And yes, there are high net worth people that are buying artwork, but how do I reach that 30 under 30, the new blockchain money, the new generation of wealth? Okay, these guys they are reading and more knowledgeable about financial matters than any other generation. And with AI and information, they have access to write a deck of a business plan within seconds and present it to an M&A guy. And so where do they get their information? Well, think about it. Forbes, compared to Wall Street Journal, New York Times, is the most trusted financial name in the industry. People know that brand better than they know any other brand, Coca-Cola. It's 100-year-old company. And so when we got together with them, we looked at this of Zillow is a media company. Zillow gets approximately 57 million visitors a month. If you think about it, they're using our data. They have just presented it differently as a media company, and people use their search engine.
Exactly.
Forbes, so 57 million people a month. Forbes gets over 150 million visitors a month to our website. So by putting our by putting our properties, I mean, I don't know the exact story, but I understand it was basically, Forbes family and, Jeff Highland had a talk, and it was like, if you could deliver the type of real estate that our clients like on social media, because real estate is a big media play.
Yeah.
Maybe we could do something. So Forbes Global Properties came into existence. And when you go onto the Forbes Global Properties website, you can see why it is just candy for wealthy people to look at, and why that connection of Forbes and the global properties is a perfect connection. And then there's the media play, the ability to have a unique property that has a story. And I sent you a property this morning that was in the Wall Street Journal, and those media connections of being able to say, hey, I've got a property that, has a 15,000 square foot house and a 15,000 square foot car house and another car storage area that you can store another 50 cars. And then having the relationships that I can get that published. I can call the editor at Forbes, tell them the story, and boom, my client's house is in Forbes.
Wow.
That's access.
Yeah, that's powerful. That's like, what recession? I remember asking one of my customers, like, hey, what's your thoughts on the recession? He goes, what recession? I really believe we're a byproduct of people we surround ourselves with. And so if you can build your own inner circle, whether it be entry level wealth, a couple million, I think today's 4.8 million to be just a success story in the US, or maybe it's high net worth, maybe 100 plus million. You need that inner circle. I love that house. Like, I shared it with my wife, and I'm like looking at it, I'm like, babe, like, this is enough to fit all our cars one day, maybe most of the cars. And so I want to build off on that. What is a feature that's underlooked when buying a luxury home? What is your favorite feature? And what is the coolest feature you've ever seen in a luxury home? So what is
I'm so drawn to your space and the trend towards, off grid and, traveling and going wherever you want and going to spaces that no one knew there was access to. One of the spaces that, we have a really incredible vice president of my company, Kendra Ratcliffe, who came out of Cabela. And Cabela at one point in time had a real estate company, and then her and I partnered up, and she's been a founder of my company. And we work with another group called Land and Wildlife. And a lot of these properties you guys never see that we transact, and they're off the market. We have what's called a private office at Forbes that for clients that have unique listings that don't want the same type of public exposure. And a lot of these opportunities are in the off-grid properties that have their own water sources, like executive ranches, those type of things. And then watching the type of garage spaces, and the garage has changed from a garage to an entertainment space. And then within that category, people who collect cars collect guns, and they collect other toys. And so having underground bunkers with basically like literally a bank locker to get into these underground bunkers, and being off the grid with solar and but the road systems are systems that they need automotives like yours to have access. That's a really cool growing trend right now that we're seeing in Oregon and in Washington that plays right into your space.
I love that. A lot of times customers ask me like, hey, what's 2-3 things that are really unique about your rigs? And I'm like, well, I can't limit it to 2 or 3, but self-sustainable and still luxury. Like, you can go 1,000 miles and not stop for water, fuel, food, or bathroom. Like, imagine being able to drive 1,000 miles and not having to stop anywhere. In addition, having a reinforced front end to where if there's 3 cars that you need to push through, you can push through 3 cars. And that's like if you're a standstill, if you're accelerating, I don't recommend it, but you could probably push 4 or 5 cars out of the way. Like, what more do you need? Not to mention the drone that deploys out of the roof, or a lot of these really cool and unique features. But I think one feature that's really, really overlooked in our space is the security feature of it. Yeah, it's nice to go off grid and go do all these things, but what happens when you're off grid and not feeling well? Well, our units come, if you do the safety feature, it comes with a full portable ICU unit. So you can literally put yourself on life support off grid if it came down to it. And there's a lot of these really hidden gems within our more premium models. What is your personal favorite feature of the luxury properties that you've seen or have come across?
So, our business model is people, process, surprise, and delight. And I love the surprise side and the delight side. And when you're mentioning all those kinds of assets within the vehicles, those are the surprise and delight me things that, okay, I need a vehicle to do this, but it does that. The first time I bought a Tesla and I felt the acceleration, I was like, wow, the 15-year-old in me came out, and it was like anti-gravity. And I asked the guy, how do I buy one of these? And he flipped out an iPad, and, I designed a car, and like 2 months later they called and said, your car's here. And I forgot I even ordered it. And so, one of the things about high-end consumers is, they're more spontaneous than a point of purchase at a grocery store. In other words, when you and I are in a grocery store and we're waiting in line, and we might pick up a magazine and a charger or something and a pack of gum while we're there, luxury buyers are more spontaneous. Their life, they live in a line that if they see something they want and you properly understand their surprise and delight, they'll turn around and say, I have to have that. In the luxury space right now, I coined the term during COVID, vacation where you live.
Ooh, I like that.
And I blew it up during COVID. I had a great year. I think in 2021, 22, I did, like, by myself. My numbers aren't my brokerage firm numbers. I think I did 150 million in sales.
Wow.
If you think about, okay, he did 150 million in sales and he's making 3.5% off that. That was a good year income wise. And that year I coined the term vacation where you live, because when COVID was happening, I remember there was a day that we had forest fires on the other side of the river where I live, and it was COVID. So I felt like I was driving through an apocalyptic moment. I had the HEPA filter from my Tesla on, and I'm driving through this golden sunlight, and it's COVID. And I'm thinking, man, I am flying through the eye of the hurricane, doing more business than anybody. And why? And it's because when COVID hit, I thought, well, I know the solution. Okay, I get it, but I'm not going to get locked down. I'm going to buy a place that has a swimming pool, a tennis court, it's gated and has acreage, and I'm going to invite all my friends over. I'm going to still live my life. I am going to vacation where I live. And so that became a really popular asset for people moving out of urban areas out to Clackamas County, Washington County, where I work, and then some of these ranches and properties, southwestern Washington, also buying vineyards, that type of thing became popular. I look at right now, I love the toy sector. The fact that when you build a house, even in Oregon, where you can only use a swimming pool, let's say 4 months a year, build a pool. Build a pool why not have a pool that during the time of the year you're not using the pool, a tennis court pulls over it, or a basketball court, pickleball. Why not have, all the assets in your home, theater rooms and indoor, outdoor living, views. And then, watching the builders trick out homes with the new technologies and the ability to walk in and turn houses on, turn houses off, and then, have your special spaces. But it really comes down to, what are the surprise and delights? Like, how do I duplicate what you just described in one of your automobiles in a house? And then having a place to store one of your vehicles, and to take care of it and enjoy your friends with it.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a big mistake people make. Whenever I get the chance to really connect with some of my customers and really educate them on the luxury RV space, I'm like, if you buy a traditional RV, it literally stands for ruined vacation.
Okay.
Like, that's how bad it is. And I'm like, you have to really put some thought into the features and the materials. Like, are they toxic? Are they non-toxic? And people are like, really? And I'm like, yeah. So what happens when you and your family are in this tight, confined space, whether it be a garage or a recreational vehicle, and it's 100, 105 degrees outside? Is there going to be fumes coming from the wall? I mean, look at the history of the United States. Why are there still disclosures? Has there ever been a meth lab or lead in the paint of the home?
Yeah.
Like, you got to be mindful of not just the features, but the components used in the product. What is one of the most unique or favorite features that you've seen in regards to materials or components used on a luxury property?
Well, before I jump into that, I'm more fascinated by you than I am me right now. So
Hey, you can ask me questions too. This is a podcast.
Yeah. So, what's really cool about your space is you're not just creating something that you use right now. I think your automobiles, this is a brand new space of automobiles that you've created. And these are going to become collector items. And I think, I recently traded off. I had a 1979 Defender, plastic, totally collectible, great purchase, great resale. I feel like you're creating a category of automobiles and the way that you build them that people 30, 40 years from now are going to be going back and trying to find your original lines and buying those because they're going to stand the test of time. And they are just, so I'm so intrigued by that. Like, there's a provenance to your properties. And I'm sure you see, let me ask you this question. Are you seeing trading already going on where somebody comes in and buys a certain level with certain delivery, and that guy is already trading that to somebody that he knows is a friend, letting that be the entry level, and then he's scaling up?
Yes.
Like, I feel like you're creating the collector, a whole new collector space.
Yeah, no, we're seeing it firsthand. It's unreal to me. I tracked down one of the first vans we built, and it's still, we built it like a luxury condo. So all real wood, granite countertops, glass shower door. This thing's not going anywhere. And I saw some pictures on social media, and I'm like, wow, it looks as good as it was when we built it 5 years ago. And 5 years of wear and tear and off-roading is a lot for an RV. Nowadays, they build them to last 3 years. And I offered to buy it back, and they said no. And I'm like, I was shocked. I'm like, what if I give you double? They're like, no, it's got too much sentimental value to me. And I'm like, well, what if I give you triple? And they're like, well, put it in writing. We'll think about it. And it's just such a powerful moment to me. Like, wow, we're not just building cardboard boxes here or spec homes. We're building products that have value, that have that shared experience, and that kind of create those memories that people don't want to part from.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting when you ask mostly what I like about houses. The reality of it is, I like how a space makes you feel. Yeah. And when I was just in Nantucket and Martha's Vineyard, the architecture was just, all this pristine old whalers homes with cedar siding and white picket fences, and I love modern architecture. I love craftsmen. I love, old barns but what I like is, how people are advancing the building styles and then adding the tricks and the trades. But I think, homes are really, it's it's a relationship you have 24 hours a day with. And, right. It should just be, how do you feel living there? And then what is it delivering to your life? And that changes over time.
Yeah.
So I'm lucky I get to be excited about all kinds of really waterfront properties. And, I'm so grateful and humbled of the type of inventory that I get to represent.
That's incredible. It's I like telling my customers, thank you for allowing me to be a part of your adventure or a part of your journey, because it's not just like something you buy and sell or something you don't pay too much attention to. We'll spend at least a third of our lifetime in this home. So why not make it a home you're wanting to come to and enjoy?
One quick question I have. So I used to live in Seattle, and I had to be in the trading floor in downtown Seattle in the morning. I lived in Kirkland. Sometimes it would take up me 2 hours to get to Seattle going over the bridge. What percentage of time do people spend in their vehicles of their lives?
Oh, that's a good question. I've never thought about that. I'm going to pull it up online real quick. I know we have about 10% of our customers that daily commute in their expedition vehicles. One of my local customers here, he's got 2 daughters, a little bit younger than yours. And it's interesting. He drives them to school, and he'll go out and he'll go to church on Sunday in it. And he just says it's so much practical. No more public restrooms. If you're going on a road trip and you need to stop and get something from the fridge, it's there. So how much time do people spend in their vehicles?
And while you're looking that up, it's kind of like, think about when you go on a vacation and you show up at the front desk. Here's what my wife does. Did we get a good room? Did we get a good room? And then I'm always forced to go back up to the guy, and you're really good at this, Terry, and go, hey, this is like the only vacation I've taken in 20 years. Is there any chance you could put us in a better room? This is such a special moment to be with my kids. An oceanfront view would be great. And so, because you think about it, I work a lot, 7 days a week, 12 hours a day. And then I do take more vacations than the average guy. But that time is so important. How many thousands of dollars per hour is that time worth? And so when you're driving or you're traveling, what is it worth to have that become a memory as opposed to just transportation? And that's the way I look at your vehicles, is that you open up the world to experiences. And yes, you will pay more for a waterfront view property on vacation than the garden view. So, why not? And I'm seeing a trend towards that, where automotive sales, boat sales, the toy sales, people are investing more in those. And vacation homes.
I agree. We see it too. I mean, you can buy a spec RV similar to spec home for 10% of the cost, but will it give you the pleasure and joy that you want? Or are you going to be on the phone with the handyman all the time, or having your secretary deal with the service? One of my clients purchased a $750,000 unit instead of spending $1 million with us. Well, in the first year, 8 of those months was in the service center.
Okay.
Like, what was those 8 months worth to you?
So another trending question I have is, so it's kind of interesting because, clients will call me and say, hey, for this reason, we need to go buy a place in Las Vegas. So I'll get on their jet, or we'll fly over and we'll go see a penthouse in Las Vegas. And I hook up with a great realtor in Las Vegas. I have clients that, during the COVID stage, they really bumped up. They own a, $15 million house, $10 million Nevada, Cabo San Lucas, Hawaii, some for tax purposes and residency, and then others they travel around. But with that said, there's a lot of maintenance that comes with managing all of those assets. And sometimes I'm fortunate to work with very high net worth people. I'm just the toll bridge of those people. I get a small percentage of their net worth. And so I'm doing fine. But, I'm a late bloomer dad. I did not get married till I was 45. So I've got one more daughter who's going to be, 18 pretty soon. And there's a part of me that, I'm like, hey, I'm going to buy a small place in Hawaii. Maybe I'll buy a Ritz-Carlton. Ritz-Carlton is one of the developments I'm working on in Portland. Buy a Ritz-Carlton. And people say, but when your kids come to visit, where are they going to stay instead of having a 7,000, 10,000 square foot house? And I'm like, well, if I'm living at the Ritz-Carlton, I'll put the Christmas tree up here and then I'll go get them a room for the night. But I'm not managing that. But is there a trend also towards people who are scaling back maybe their larger home idea, buying a vehicle like yours, having a place to keep it in, let's say, Arizona during the winter, a place up in the Northwest during the summer, and then they've got a vehicle like yours that they go they're free. They're free to go travel.
Yeah, it is a big trend. A lot of our retirees on the wealthier side, they can't do a hotel. They won't do Four Seasons. They won't even entertain. I mean, it doesn't matter what hotel. Post-pandemic, people are such germaphobes. It's like, it's rubbed off on me. Like, germexing my hands. But anyways, they will use it. They'll park it at their grandkids. When they visit their grandkids and they're not impeding on their tight, smaller homes, they'll stay in the actual unit. And also on vacation properties, it's like, you have this big vacation home, but why aren't you like, why do you need this? And they're like, well, we wanted to drive in between our vacation homes and whether it's the state or a couple of different cities. So yes, it's been a big trend. And then in addition, maintenance is really low. We build them like yachts. So our philosophy is once a year, we have an app where you go through a database of over 100 service centers. We have Mobile vans will come out to your home, service it, so you don't even have to go to the service center. So yeah, I definitely see a big trend.
So you make me think of an interesting, I'm always like, okay, what's another a way to create access? I mean, I think there could also be a trend towards people, let's say I find them a small executive ranch or forested, 20 acres somewhere that is essentially unpaved, off grid, has water rights, so you can have a well. And then instead of building, a 10,000 square foot luxury house, why don't you build a 5,000 square foot, 4,000 square foot garage that you bring your vehicle into, you park, and you have all kinds of services within that garage and entertainment spaces and a big patio. So you've got, you're enjoying the asset of where you live. And I can almost see a trend towards that, where people want to find the properties that give them the benefit of being off grid, being private, water rights, but they take your vehicle in, and your vehicle is really where they stay. But maybe there is some sort of outbuilding, some sort of bunker, storage, that stays with that property when they go to travel.
Yeah. And another cool thing that I've seen, one gentleman actually had a platform built on his yacht for one. Another gentleman, my favorite story is he's out of Florida, but he's got a huge piece of land in Canada. Same thing, owns the water rights. He found a fly fishing hole that's just like, he calls it a gold mine of fly fishing, and only exclusive. The world didn't even know about it, which is crazy. He was just walking the land one day with a couple of friends, and they found this really cool watering hole. So I'll have to send you a picture, but he built this huge platform and a parking slot in the middle of the platform. So whenever his buddies and him go fishing, they'll drive this from the main primary residency to this platform, and they have all their drinks, their water, their bathroom, everything is there on this platform next to this fishing hole.
Amazing. Well, I think both of us are in the business of delivering lifestyle and life experiences.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I can't even imagine, like, what else would you do next to the water hole? Like, build an entire property that takes away from the nature and everything. And versus here, you drive the vehicle away, and there's just this beautiful, pavilion like balcony there, and you didn't interrupt any of the nature of the water hole that's there.
It's fascinating to watch the trends, and you're definitely in a marketplace. It'll be, it's interesting to watch how real estate, the size of real estate, the locations, we're having a trend towards branded residences now. People with high net worth, they, the reasons why country clubs, Soho clubs, yacht clubs do well is, people like to congregate within space or isolate. So either be in a space where they're among other people with shared lifestyle, or, and that's not, I don't actually see that as, the wealthy just want to be around wealthy people. I think what tends to happen is that, people that have done well in life also tend to be very creative, interesting people to hang out with and talk to. And so they tend to join hunting clubs and do things together. So they either want to be together or have privacy to be together. And so, one of the trends we're seeing is, like the Ritz-Carlton development we're doing in Portland, is the idea of being in a community of, shared creativity, but lock and go. And so maybe what I'll do is I'll buy my condo at the Ritz, and I'll buy one of yours so that I can go travel the country with my wife. And I would like to go fly fishing.
Yeah. My only advice is don't wait till you're old. One of my clients just a couple of weeks ago pulls in his sports car super fast, 94 years old. And he's like, I need a unit today. I need to be on the road today. And I'm just like, you get registration, taxes. I mean, you got to title it. We can help you with all that, but it's not fast. He's like, no, I need it today. I need to be on the road today. And I'm like, sir, if you don't mind me asking, what's the urgency, And he's like, my wife was diagnosed with stage 4, and doctor said she's got less than a year left to live. And I promised her to take her on a cross-country tour and do the Route 66 trip. And I'm like, all right, sir, I will personally work with my secretary. I will do I just need you to sign these affidavits as power of attorney. We will get it registered, titled. Here's a temp tag. You get on the road, and we'll take care of everything else. And just knowing that our vehicles are built to last, and that I have the ease of mind, he'll spend this year on the road and he won't go into a single service center. You don't
What
have that traditional RVs, regardless what quality or what brand you buy. RVs are known to go from service center to service center. That's why there's so many camping worlds out there. Whenever you got to sea, do you see any mobile floating repair center in the middle of the sea? No, you don't have that. So why are we needing RV repair facilities if you build a quality vehicle that people can enjoy? So yeah, my advice would be, if that's something that you have on your heart, don't wait till you're 94 years old, Mr. Terry.
Yeah, I definitely won't. But I'm having a fun time doing what I'm doing. First of all, that's a very heartwarming story, and that's a surprise and delight story of you jumping in with that client and facilitating the licensing and getting them on the road. The first thing flashed in my mind before I heard that it was, because of a sad situation, was working with NBA basketball players. I recently sold a property, on the lake here in Lake Oswego, and I want a boat tomorrow. and there's you got to get a license, you got to get the private lake license, we've got to get the boat, we got the register. But you know what? Within 24 hours, I had a boat on the water, and I facilitated licensing.
Yeah.
So you just got to do what you got to do.
I like what you said, a toll. Is that what you said, a toll bridge, or what are you?
I'm a toll bridge.
Yeah. A lot of times people, even my clients, like, oh, can we take you out to dinner? And here's this bottle of wine from this exotic vineyard, and you're such an inspiration to it. I'm like, wow, guys, I feel like I'm just getting started. I feel like a 5-year-old, and I feel like I don't have my life figured out. I'm running and scaling a company. I feel like I'm just here to serve you guys, here to help you guys pursue your adventure. So I'm going to take that from you. I'm just your toll bridge to new experiences.
Yeah, well, you think about it in every industry. If you've ever driven on a toll road, you have the option of taking the toll road or taking the longer track. And our clients have multiple lanes that they could choose to run their business through, to buy their vehicle, to buy their home. And in essence, maybe our toll bridge is more expensive. I know that if you're looking for a discount model from a real estate broker point of view, I'm not that model. But if you're looking at what will I net, even though Terry might get paid more, he's worth more. I'm willing to pay an attorney that can write one letter and get me out of a legal situation versus going on a legal Zoom. I'm willing to buy a vehicle that I'm going to have to pay a premium for, but I see the value. So becoming that value toll bridge that, fortunately for me, life is abundant and enough people are choosing my toll lane to do their real estate transactions.
That's so powerful. To wrap this all up, we've been going on an hour now, and I wish we could go on for 2 hours, but we'll have to do a part 2 in person. I'm going to be in Portland this fall, so I'll catch you in Portland and do one in person.
Well, let's do this. Let's do it like at one of our ranches or one of our off-grid properties where we could have your vehicle and we can explore 30,000 acres or something.
Yes, I love that. And to provide a unique experience. I love that. We got to do this more often. What would your final thoughts be? What would your final thoughts be on everything that we spoke about? Maybe you just wanted to leave the listener off with some inspiration.
Well, I'm always thinking about everybody's living on an island right now. And, sometimes you just got to turn off the noise. And as successful as my optics look, I wake up every day trying to, with my concerns about life and trying to figure out how I'm going to meet my responsibilities. I would just say, one of the reasons you and I are talking is that I like to surround myself by other people that are playing it forward, giving back to the community, care about their families, care about their local community, and find those type of people that you have shared values. And know, if you have a dream, tell people what your dream is. I think one of the concerns I have about the new generation of people is that you talked about communication, texting, and filling out an application online. If there's any chance to get in front of anybody and let them know what your dreams are, humans by nature, the majority that are the real majority of the population in the world, want to help each other, want to empower each other. So you know what? Wear your dreams on your chest and doors will open for you.
I love that. Thank you so much, Terry. Thank you, everybody, for listening to us today. If you'd like to connect with Terry, you can find him on Instagram. You can punch his name into Google. You can also follow the link below. You'll see the book that he co-authored on and a link to his website as well. Thank you so much. And if you'd like to be featured on this podcast or know someone whose story can inspire others to explore more, to get out of their comfort zone, to shut out the noise and live life to their fullest potential, please comment in the comment section below, and I'd love to connect with them and share their story too.